No one ever told us that it would come to this. The automobile was supposed to bring us mobility, happiness, and freedom. Well, there was a time in America when it really did. Come join us as we travel back through time to find that promise again.
Come away with me, Lucile, in my merry automobile. Down the road, a light will fly, automo buckling, you and I. Through the church we'll swiftly steal, then our wedding bells will peal. You can go as far as you like with me in my merry automobile.
Come join us as we follow Lucile and her beau and their merry Oldsmobile out on the country roads of America. As the clock ticks back through the years, we are really driving through time, touring this great land in our antique and classic automobiles. Welcome back to Driving Through Time. I'm David Harshide, your host. And we're calling today's show Come Away With Me, Lucile. And it's dedicated to all of us who take our antique and classic cars out on the road touring. Above all, it's dedicated to our brave navigators in the passenger seats, our loving wives who bring grace and style to any tour. Now, in this video, we'll join two of America's most prestigious touring events, the Founders Tour and the Glidden Tour. Well, there are many others, of course, some national events rich in tradition, others almost unknown. But this is how they all start, early on registration day. Some morning, somewhere in America, the locals notice something different about the early traffic. A Ford Model A here, another there, a Packard perhaps. Then other antique cars, all polished and waxed, all looking their best, turning heads as they go by. They are converging on the Augusta County Government Center in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley. They have come to join the 66th Annual Glidden Tour, hosted by the Stanton-Waynesboro chapter of the Antique Automobile Club of America. All cars pass a safety inspection and then receive a number and the Glidden Tour emblem. At the registration desk inside, you sign in and pick up your complete tour package. Hotel and room assignments, daily itineraries, and route maps, lunch tickets, and lots of information on places to visit and things to do. Then, the all-important process of socializing gets underway. People greet old acquaintances, make new friends, and generally become familiar with the lay of the land. Socializing and networking get into high gear in the evening. This is the kickoff banquet of the 1999 Founders Tour, hosted by the AACA's Western Pennsylvania region. At the Glidden Tour, of course, they're having their own kickoff dinner. Everyone is settled in by now. Everyone feels at home, and participants from all across the country are becoming a big family, united by their love of antique cars and by their excitement about tomorrow morning when the tour begins in earnest. Will the sun smile on them? Will their cars hold up to the challenge? Tonight, though, there's only good food and companionship. It's a mellow, warm, and happy occasion. The mood is festive, and only simple choices are required, like ranch dressing or blue cheese, and decaf or regular coffee. The annual Glidden Tour is one of the oldest tours in the world, and it attracts some of the finest cars on the road. The tour was founded all the way back in 1905 by automobile manufacturers and the American Automobile Association to prove that cars were reliable enough to actually travel from town to town. Charles Glidden, an industrialist and automobile enthusiast from New England, endowed the tour with a $2,000 trophy, and the event was promptly named in his honor. The first Glidden Tour traveled from New York to Boston to Bretton Woods, and most of the cars actually stayed the course. The tour was revived in 1946, and every year since then, the sponsorship has alternated between the AACA and the VMCCA, the Veteran Motor Car Club of America. The AACA's Founders Tour is dedicated to the cars of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and on the road, it's a thing to see. These Bonnevilles and Fairlanes, Buicks, Cadillacs, DeSotos, Plymouths and Ford Edsels, and even a majestic Rolls-Royce take us back to a time that many of us remember as the best that ever was. We knew only one direction, and that was up. Life would always get better. Cars would always get bigger. We had the wind in our hair and swing and rock on the car radio. Those golden days don't seem quite as far away as the Founders Tour breezes along the open roads of western Pennsylvania. There's no rush hour traffic and nary a stop sign to break the spell. Just the hills, the farms, and the road, and the admiring glances of other motorists who would dearly love trading places with us. It's almost impossible today to imagine a world without cars. Most people never left the place where they were born. Trips to the nearest town were epic events, and a journey to the big city, the coast, the mountains, became the experience of a lifetime. And news took so much time to get around that it had become history by the time it reached you. All this was changed by the automobile. Charles and Frank Duryea, Ransom Olds, and many other early pioneers, and then William C. Durant and Henry Ford really did change the world. People saw their cars and they wanted them. And when they had them, they wanted roads, and they built them. And with this first taste of freedom, touring became a fad, an obsession, a national pastime. But no one knows who coined the word tourists for these early automotive travelers, but Henry Ford himself was one of the first and most enthusiastic. He turned touring and camping into a fine art and spared no expense. When Henry Ford drove out into the woods, he brought along a convoy of 50 cars and trucks, a city of tents, a complete field kitchen, and an army of cooks, wood choppers, maids, men servants, and entertainers. He also brought along his friends and their families. His good buddies, Thomas Edison and Harvey Firestone, were frequent touring companions. Here at his birthday, with cake and pastries out among the trees. And it's out among the trees, with cake and pastries, that we find the Founders Tour again. There's a sort of time-honored ritual to touring. Every morning brings a breakfast stop with steaming coffee urns, donuts and Danish. Noontime, an al fresco lunch in a roadside park somewhere. Then you'll visit an historic site or other attraction along the day's route. And always in between, the romance of the road. In case you've ever wondered what people mean when they talk about that romance of the road, you should have been here with the Glidden tour this misty summer morning. The little farms were never lovelier, the broad Shenandoah Valley never greener than we saw it then. And as we traveled with the tour, we were amazed by just how perfectly these venerable cars blended in with the landscape. Those lazy country lanes and these stately automobiles just seemed to be made for each other, as indeed they were back then when they were built. As the morning passes, nobody is counting the hours. Progress is measured by what lies around the next bend and over the next hill. This is as close as we'll ever come to that time, 50, 60, and 70 years ago, when the automobile was not so much a means of transportation as of exploration.
There's a broad, smooth highway that leads from your door to an unforgettable vacation. Mountains to be climbed, canyons to be explored. You won't need any special equipment, not even a fishing license. It wasn't as easy as this a generation ago. Today, you have only to get in your car and go. There are scenes of breathtaking beauty in every direction. Now we can take leave of all responsibilities, nothing to do but soak up the sunshine and feast our eyes. We're as fancy-free as the water that comes leaping from the ledges and tumbles down into the canyons. Woof, woof, a black bear. But don't worry, he's friendly. He won't bother you. You can get off the beaten track if you want to. Get entirely away from everything civilized and familiar. Or you can drive through in a comparatively short time. The modern motor car takes you from your front door to this natural treasure house, gives you a comfortable vacation, and brings you back rested and refreshed with a deeper appreciation of natural beauty and of the great country in which we live.
Deep in the Amish country of southwestern Pennsylvania lies the renowned Wingate Winery, and it is worth a detour and your visit. Its wines have won over 75 national awards. Today, the vineyard has opened its tasting room and gift shop to the Founders Tour. The labels on the wine bottles read like poetry. Amish Country Aurora, Cheval Blanc, Vidal Blanc, Deschanel, Amish Blush, Spring Rose, Eye of the Shadow, Eye of the Buck, and the wines themselves live up to the promise. So much to taste, so little time. The Vidal Blanc, by the way, was our great favorite. On the Glidden tour, another stop, in another valley, another time. Here, on this meadow near Newmarket, Virginia, a heroic battle was fought during the Civil War. The year was 1864, and a Union army was marching down the Shenandoah Valley. All that stood between them and Richmond was a much smaller Confederate force and 247 young cadets of the Virginia Military Institute. When all seemed lost, their general ordered, "Put the boys in, and may God forgive me for the order." So the boys went into battle in their white gloves and the finery of their parade uniforms, and their charge carried the day and won a great victory. Those cadets and their comrades in arms, both blue and gray, are commemorated here in Newmarket's Hall of Valor. It's a moving place, haunted by echoes and memories, a fitting place to pause, to let us contemplate the sacrifices that turned our many states into one nation. A successful tour doesn't just happen. It succeeds because behind the scenes, there are lots of people who make it happen. They're the unsung heroes who work long hours, stake out the route, post the signs, arrange your hotels and meals, and take care of the nitty-gritty. We have 3 guests today who can tell us more about these details and what it takes to put an antique car tour together. Earl Beauchamp and his wife Judy just launched a new divisional event, the first ever sentimental tour, hosted by the AACA's Northern Neck region. Earl was the tour chairman, and Judy chaired registrations. Roy Graydon, a former national director of the AACA. He was the tour director of the 1999 Founders Tour. Let me start with you, Roy. You've said, if you want to make me truly happy, just give me a good tour. Well, what makes it succeed?
Well, first of all, you have to have something of interest for just about everybody. You get a budget ready, you figure out how many people you can accommodate on the tour, and that is determined mostly by the places that you go to eat, different banquet facilities and lunches. Some places are only equipped to handle 200 people or 300 people or whatever, and that determines how many cars you're going to be able to take on the tour.
There are a myriad of things. There's laying out the routes. There's finding the vendors for the meals, the vendors for the motels. You got to deal with all the various historical sites that you want to visit. Some of them are happy to get you, and others don't understand what it's all about. Some are afraid that you're a bunch of greasy motorheads, and you're going to mess up their place or steal the stuff inside or something. And you have to go around and explain to all of them, hey, AACA is the largest antique club in the world. It's got 63,000 members all over the world. It's a historical preservation society, just like you are, except we are into the historical preservation of automobiles.
Tell me, Roy, all this learning money that you pay, the experience that people like you and Earl gather over the years, is that preserved and handed down so that future tours may profit from it?
AACA has the policy and procedure manual, which we encourage all tour directors and meet chairmen to read very thoroughly. Tour guidelines fall under section 4, and there's 26 pages that describe the responsibilities of all the tour chair people. It gives you a brief synopsis of the reliability tour, the Glidden tour, Founders tour, the Vintage tour, and the divisional tours. If this book is followed, you'll have a successful tour.
Judy, you've been very quiet here, just crocheting away. Tell me, does this have something to do with your tour?
I guess I wanted this tour to have heart. So it needed to have something special. And when we decided to use the plastic name tags, they have little elastic strings that aren't very stable. They kind of flip around. And so I said, well, I'll crochet them. And Earl says, Judy, do you know how much work that's going to be? And I said, oh, it won't be so bad. I'll just do it as I watch TV. So I've ended up making over 250 of the name tags.
It's more than just the love of the automobile. It's really true friendship. You have, in a short time, you accumulate friends all over the United States. It's a very close-knit club and with their activities.
Yes, I think I see what you mean. And many thanks to all of you, Roy and Judy and Earl, for joining our show. So, there you have it. It's policies and procedures, and vendors for meals and lodging, and routes and places to go and see, and much, much more, of course. True friendship turns these tours into something special, different, and lasting. It's the stuff from which memories are made. Some of these memories can be downright breathtaking, like the golden sunlight dappling the river as the Glidden Tour crosses the South Fork of the Shenandoah on an ancient covered bridge. It's moments like these that make it all worthwhile, memories that will never fade. If the Glidden Tour is at home on winding byways and country lanes, the Founders Tour is tailor-made for cruising broader state highways. It conjures up the glory days of old Route 66, of motels with cozy cabins and names like Whispering Pines, and roadside diners with chrome jukeboxes, meatloaf and gravy, and big, tall milkshakes. Remember that the very first Glidden Tour was run as an endurance test, and even today, the tour can quickly turn into a challenge. This morning, a sudden downpour turns the pavement slick and treacherous, and a dense fog rises from the hollows as we climb to the top of the Blue Ridge Mountains. We're happy to report that all cars reached the top and stayed the course, just as they did on that very first Glidden Tour back in 1905. Summer and sunshine soon return, and the locals gather by the roadside to take in the unforgettable sight of 200-odd antiques and classics motoring by in all their splendor. They literally stop traffic as they pass through small towns and villages and easily retake the right-of-way on the open road. There they go, the Glidden and the Founders Tour, the Vintage and Reliability Tour, the New Sentimental Tour, the 1 and 2 Cylinder Tour, the Nickel and the Transcontinental Tour. There they go, across America's blue highways, and our hearts and memories go with them. Let us wish them happy days and fair winds as they drive through time, over the horizon and off into the sunset. And that's our show for today. Thank you for joining us. And as always, please let us know what you think. Just use the response card that came with the video. And trust me, we read all of them and follow up on your suggestions as much as we can. Today's show was called Come Away With Me, Lucile. And as you know, that has been the Oldsmobile song for nearly 100 years. Now, this venerable name and an important chapter of American automotive history is coming to an end. General Motors has announced that they will close that division. Soon, there will be no more Mary Oldsmobiles. Somehow, I cannot quite imagine Lucile in a Toyota. So, as we roll our production credits, let's take a moment to say goodbye to 100 years of unforgettable Oldsmobile history. For Driving Through Time, I'm David Harshide.
Here's a young lady who seems to think she could drive Mommy's car, and maybe she could at that. It's a new dynamic Oldsmobile with GM Hydromatic Drive, the fully proved feature that reduces all driving to its simplest terms. See? She steps on the gas, steers the car, and that's all she does.
You may not know anything about engines, but if you get behind that wheel, it won't take you long to get that futuramic feeling, the big new thrill of 1949.
What a thrill to take the wheel of the smart new Oldsmobile. For performance, here's the star. This is the rocket engine car. Futuramic through and through. It has hydromatic too. When you take the wheel of this Oldsmobile, there's a big new thrill for you.